Heads up to the listeners of the Browns Nation station. If you are looking to show your Browns Nation pride, look no further than brownsnationswag.com. They have all the latest and best fan gear to represent your team. Again, that's brownsnationswag.com. Cue the music. It's time to start the show. Welcome to the Browns Nation station. I'm your host, Mark Bergin, joined today by fellow brownsnation.com colleague Steven Kubitza. And Steven, the Browns have improved to 8-3 after this afternoon's 27-25 win over the Jacksonville Jaguars. This game had a little bit of everything, but Steven, I'm going to turn things over to you to start out on today's show. What was your big takeaway from this afternoon's win over the Jaguars?
I'd say the big takeaway is concerns with Baker's accuracy in really what you would call should be the easy passing game, short yardage, just throwing on the run, missing all those throws. And it's going to lead to a huge debate, which there already is on like Brown's Twitter and radio shows about, is he the right guy moving forward? Because he'll miss an easy throw and then throw a laser to Jarvis Landry, like from the back of the end zone. So it's going to be analyzing that. And I guess the second takeaway is the Browns have 8 wins, which is a rare thing. So it's nice to see.
Yes. For the first time since 2007, the Browns have a non-losing season. So celebrate, Cleveland Browns fans, with that fact. But it's not so much Baker Mayfield's inaccuracy. Roll back the tape, look at the replays, look at his footwork on these throws. And specifically in the second quarter, missing Rashard Higgins on a slant pass, which, Steven, I think you or I could have completed that pass. It was an easy touchdown. He overthrows Higgins on that play, and he then overthrows Jarvis Landry on another play, and the Browns have to settle for 3 and settle for a field goal. That kind of missed throw might not cost you, say, against the Jacksonville Jaguars, but against better competition moving forward, like next weekend against the Tennessee Titans, it will, or against the Steelers, or against the Ravens. He also had that missed throw late in the fourth quarter on a third down conversion to Kareem Hunt out of the backfield, little flat pattern. And it's the easy, simple throws when his receiver is wide open. And it's just, I don't know if it's the yips. I don't know what it is. Again, doesn't cost you this afternoon against Jacksonville, but against better teams, missing those throws can be the difference between winning and losing in this league.
And I totally agree with that. And it doesn't even look like the yips. I think it goes back to what you said with just his footwork. The picture, like the still shot of his missed throw to Higgins, he was standing both feet facing forward, flat-footed, and Higgins was open the whole time. And he just waits. He's like pump faking it and then sails it, but he's not turned the throw. I mean, that's just basic quarterback 101 right there, turning your body and letting it rip. He's just standing flat-footed, and it's obvious to see why he's sailing it when he's doing that.
Absolutely. And if you look at that replay on that missed throw to Higgins, it's almost as if Mayfield in his pre-snap read was trying to throw the ball to the guy who is in the slot. And I'm going to have to look back at the replay to see who that was, because both the Jaguars defenders almost double teamed whoever was in the slot on that play. And it's almost as if Mayfield had his mind made up that he was going to throw to the corner route to the receiver who is lined up in the slot on that play, when, okay, sometimes you have to read what the defense is giving to you. I believe it was Harrison Bryant who was in the slot on that play. And it's almost as if Mayfield, based on his pre-snap read, had decided in advance of the snap that that's the throw he was going to make, instead of seeing what the defense does. Clearly the Jaguars had a lapse in coverage, and he couldn't take advantage on that play. Again, I go back to, against the Jaguars, probably isn't going to matter. A team you were favored by 7 points coming into this game. But against the better competition, missing a throw like that late in the season against the best of the best in this league will cost you. And this is now back-to-back weeks. We've seen this now with Baker Mayfield.
And on top of it, too, we finally got to see, the problems that exist when there's normal weather. So that was a concern too, because you can look at the past 3 games, and I mean, the announcers are doing it. It's fair to do, saying, well, the weather was horrible. You can't really look at his final stats because I mean, we all watched the games. It was a disaster. Raining sideways, hailing, and all that. So you see him do it today, missing these throws, and it brings you back to the concerns you had last year, and maybe even earlier this year when they were getting, they had their few blowout losses. And you're talking about, the pre-snap reads, just having to adapt. It's a game where they win, so you can kind of say, okay, let's just move forward. But now it's going to become a week-by-week thing. It says, hey, well, we want to not just get into the playoffs, but maybe win a playoff game. Is Baker going to be able to fix these things, or is it going to be like the past 20 years of Browns football where it just deteriorates, which I don't think will happen because I think Kevin Stefanski's a better coach. But if they're not practicing as much in person during the week, it's, the problems could persist.
And I was ready to give Mayfield all the credit in the world in the sense that he breaks his 3-game streak without throwing a touchdown pass. And on the play before he missed Rashard Higgins, or it was either a play or two before, it was a 3rd and 3. The Browns are driving, have it in the red zone, and Mayfield completes a pass to Kadarius Hodge, and it was a huge conversion. The Browns get 1st and goal, and it's like, wow, a play like this, a 3rd and 3 conversion, might be the difference between a touchdown and field goal, and then he misses the easy ones. It's almost like in basketball, when you miss a wide open layup, you've got to be able to take advantage when the defense gives that to you, and he wasn't able to do that. And so it was just frustrating because you see, again, the 3rd and 3 conversion earlier on that drive, and it's like, wow, this is going to lead to 7 instead of having to settle for 3 for the field goal.
Yeah, I want to say it makes no sense how he's just missing those easy throws, but we've seen him do it for 3 years. So it's going to be a lot of analysis by the Browns front office to be like, why is this happening? And should we pay him $100 million, basically? Because you have this insane rushing attack, and and that's opening up these easy, wide open throws. But if he's not hitting them, then it totally defeats the purpose and the flow of the entire offense. So I understand everyone's frustration. I was frustrated. I'm sure, everyone watching had a few times screaming at the TV. But if they would have lost today's game, then that would have been a situation where, because it happened in 2014, they got the 7 wins, lost, and then totally panicked, which I don't think would happen with Stefanski. He's not going to bench Baker for, Case Keenum. That'd be insane. But they were finally, for once, able to avoid that disaster scenario and just have to move forward now.
I was also yelling at my TV on that play where I see Higgins going across the field wide open, and I'm saying, throw the ball. And at first it was like, is there a defender who's there? Sometimes they show the sideline view on the broadcast, and I thought, okay, maybe there was a defender there that wasn't in the frame for why Mayfield wasn't throwing the ball. And then you see the replay again, and it's just like, this guy couldn't have been more wide open. And I found myself yelling at the TV, throw the ball, throw the ball. I tell you what, though, on a bright note, if you had Jarvis Landry in fantasy football today, he goes for more than 100 yards receiving, gets his first touchdown on the season. He and Baker Mayfield had it going early and often, and I thought he was a key difference maker for this Browns offense this afternoon.
And that's what he's supposed to be, too. So it was nice. We've seen, obviously, with the weird weather the past few weeks, Hodge, Higgins leading the way a little bit. And you're saying, where's Landry? And every time he gets hit, it looks like he's in pain, which is not good. Yeah, he gets up slowly after almost every tackle. But, today saw with his 143 yards and 11 targets, no one else got more than 3. And Chubb was one of those with 3. So he's supposed to be the number 1 receiver, especially with OBJ out. And it's nice when your number 1 receiver is getting the targets, because nothing against Hodge and Higgins, but when you see a Browns offense have guys like that lead the way, you're saying, well, why is Landry here? Or is something wrong? So today kind of got back to the normal offense.
I know Landry is playing with a cracked rib right now, and you hope that that injury has gotten better week to week. And so that's one thing he's playing through this season, and kudos to him for being able to do that. And that might be why you've seen some lower production from him so far this season. I want to get to later in the game, and in the fourth quarter, this is really the first time where I think we can really critique Coach Kevin Stefanski's decision-making really for the first time since like week 1 on that fake punt against Baltimore. And so what I want to get into is, okay, his decision to challenge the dropped touchdown pass by Harrison Bryant, which cost the team a timeout. Wasn't a great game for Harrison Bryant in the sense that he had that dropped touchdown. He had a fumble that was forced by former Browns linebacker Joe Schobert, who signed a big deal in the offseason with the Jaguars. So rough game for the rookie there. But also Kareem Hunt and deciding to go for it on 4th and 1 deep in the Jaguars territory instead of deciding to kick the field goal and go up 11. I thought it was questionable decision-making by Stefanski. It didn't end up costing the Browns, but I'm of the notion there, go up 2 scores because then you make it a 2-possession game for the Jaguars and they can't go down and score. Instead, they don't convert, and the Jaguars come back, score a touchdown, but fail to convert the 2-point conversion, which was really the key in this one. And that really goes back to the decision by Jacksonville to go for 2 earlier in the game when the Browns had jumped off sides on a PAT. So like I said off the top in this one, this was kind of a messy game. There's a lot to get into in some of the decision-making, but the Browns do prevail. But I do think that you can question some of Coach Kevin Stefanski's decision-making in this one. And really, that's the first time we've been able to do that since week 1 this season, Steven.
Yeah, it was questionable decision-making by both head coaches and questionable officiating too. So it's just kind of a vintage Browns game where nothing's going right, but the other coach somehow makes a worse decision. Starting with Doug Marrone, taking a point off the board it's never a good idea. It's almost like just once it's on there, just leave it. Why are we going for 2 so early in the game? Their goal line play calling was atrocious all game. Glennon was just, they're having him throw fades to rookie receivers or he's rolling out. It made no sense. So as soon as that happened, I'm like, all right, that's going to hopefully help the Browns. Stefanski, the challenge, I don't know why he challenged. Harrison Bryant did try to kind of sell that he caught the touchdown, but there's someone on the staff that should say, hey, it's a drop. It was almost like when Hodge made a catch on the sideline, and you think maybe the Jaguars will challenge, but Marrone looks at the replay and goes, nah, it's not worth it. So it wasn't, I wouldn't say a boneheaded decision. It just, I don't know if he just didn't get the right advice or whatever, but it was just kind of, I guess, lacked logic. So maybe it was boneheaded. I'm talking myself into it. And then when they went for it, at home, I was like, I really hope they go for it. But then I went, nah, it's probably not a good idea because you come up short on a 3rd down and you go, heck with it. Let's just go. But maybe, you should sit back and go, well, a field goal will kind of put this game out of range with Mike Glennon running the Jaguars offense. So
yes,
it seemed to be out of frustration.
Glennon, the 3rd string quarterback, because remember, Gardner Minshew's down. Last week, Luton, who was the Jaguar starter, throws 4 interceptions against the Steelers. So the Jaguars decided to go with Glennon in this one against the Browns. So he's the 3rd stringer. He's not even the backup in this one. And he was throwing the ball all over the yard. He was throwing the ball everywhere. When you go back, though, to that 4th down, it's around the Jags 21 with about 5:30 left in the 4th quarter. A few things. Okay, so if you want to go from the officiating standpoint, like if the ball is parallel to the stick, is that not a first down? Like it felt like I was watching some game and it was like Bizarro World. So I was always taught if the ball intersects with the stick, it's a first down. And then so they say that Kareem Hunt was short, which made no sense to me. And then a few other things. Okay, so then why don't you kick the field goal with Cody Parkey, who's been extremely reliable this season for the Browns? And then this gets me to my final point, and the Browns finally went back to the hot hand Nick Chubb on the final drive. But in that situation, Kareem Hunt's a terrific running back. I think he's a tremendous compliment to Nick Chubb. I want the ball in Nick Chubb's hands in that scenario. That's no knock on Kareem Hunt, but I have a lot more faith that Nick Chubb is going to convert in that situation compared to Kareem Hunt. And so why not Nick Chubb? If I'm the head coach, if I'm the decision maker, I'm going to Chubb in that scenario every single time until it's stopped. And then if a team does stop it, then maybe you use Nick Chubb as a decoy.
Starting with the officiating, my interpretation was that the base of the marker is where the ball has to intersect, and it looked like it did. So yeah, it made no. The whole situation was bizarre, and as soon as it happened, people making jokes on Twitter, it goes back to the Bottlegate game in when the Browns first came back, early 2000s, and it's like, oh, they're playing the Jaguars, something crazy is going to happen. But it made no sense. They didn't really explain it well. Why is it short? Because he put up his hands to signal the interest, but it wasn't that close. It was at the stick. So it was just, it was kind of the theme of the game. Everything, like you said, it was like some bizarre world football game where he clearly has it and they say he's short. And then I agree with you, taking Chubb out of the game. We saw this when Freddie Kitchens was the head coach. He would take Chubb out, for someone way worse than Kareem Hunt. But, this is your star running back. If he can't get 1 yard, then he's not a star then, but we know he is. He's capable of busting off 15-yard runs on any given play. And you take Chubb out of the game, the defense already knows a run is coming anyway. So, I'm curious if, maybe when Chubb does come out in those scenarios, if he needs a breather or what the situation is, because the Titans aren't going to take Derrick Henry out in a 3rd or 4th and 1.
Exactly.
Just for the flow of the game, or because Kitchens would do that, where he'd say, well, that was the play call. And the players would say, no, call the play for the players, not, your specific play call or the personnel. So just put your best players in and win that way.
One thing with Nick Chubb's knee injury earlier this season, so he got hurt in the Dallas game and missed several games and has now been back for a few. I do think that's going to keep him fresher towards the back half of this season versus if he were to have continued to play throughout the whole course of the season. So that actually could be an advantage to the Browns through the back half of their schedule on the year. I want to get into good call, bad call. And the bad call to me was the unnecessary roughness penalty on Olivier Vernon. That 4th down becomes a 1st down. It leads to a Jaguars touchdown. I understand player safety and not wanting to lead with the head, but are the NFL officials calling that on other top pass rushers in this league, whether it was, a Myles Garrett, if he were healthy and playing, or say a J.J. Watt or a T.J. Watt or an Aaron Donald? At that point in the game, it was really ticky-tacky to me. And in my opinion, I understand player safety, but I thought, and I'm not one to go after the referees either too, Steven, because, you live to play another down. I'm of the opinion that one play doesn't dictate a win or loss for any team, but that was a huge play, especially on 4th down. And I thought it was a really questionable, unnecessary roughness penalty on Olivier Vernon, and that was my bad call on this one.
Yeah, to me, it goes back to what is the rule? Is it supposed to be an egregious hit to the helmet, or is it any helmet-to-helmet contact at all? If it's any contact at all, then it looked like the penalty was correctly called. But if he's coming around the edge, and it just so happened that Mike Glenn is 6'7", and just if their heads collide, but it's not a true intentional lowering the helmet hit, is that what the penalty's in place for? So there's just no clarity in a lot of these rules in the NFL. Because on first sight, I go, that's a terrible call. And then they show the replay and you see their helmets do touch. But if I'm a quarterback and I'm getting tackled and put my head down into a defender's helmet, is that what there's supposed to be a, roughing penalty for, which I don't think is the point of the rule. So it's like with the catch rules, there's just, no one knows what the rules are. The refs sometimes explain it, sometimes they don't. So I thought it was a bad call and just started to look like, I said out loud, I go, oh no, the Browns are going to lose as soon as that happened, because that would have been the game. Luckily that didn't happen, but it's just frustrating because, it might come out this week. Maybe they'll get one of those NBA-esque apologies of, oh, we made the wrong call. Well, that doesn't help us now. It's almost better if you just stick with the original call to avoid, fans and teams freaking out. So I would just want more clarity on what the rule's supposed to be, but maybe the refs take it a different way. I don't know.
Yeah, I know the NBA will do that a lot of the times where they'll review the tape and they'll come out and say, hey, this is what the call should have been in retrospect. And I do, I respect the transparency of the leagues that do that. But at the time, it's just like you need to make sure you're making the right call in the moment. And thankfully, that did not determine the outcome in this one, either for or against the Browns, in all seriousness, because from the referees, I want them to make the right call, whether it goes for or against my team, make the right call. And I do think that they made the right call in the review of the Harrison Bryant touchdown. So that would probably be my good call, at least from a referee standpoint of I do think they made the right decision. To me, though, this all goes back to you're letting an inferior Jacksonville Jaguars team stick around late in the fourth quarter when you're a 7-point favorite. I understand Denzel Ward is out, your top defensive back. I understand Myles Garrett's out with COVID-19, a candidate for Defensive Player of the Year. I understand safety Ronnie Harrison left this game early with an injury. Where is the killer instinct from this defense to say, we're going to take this team out to deep water and drown them when we have the opportunity to? Really, every single member of the Cleveland Browns team has to ask themselves this question. It's nice to get a win in Week 12 against the Jacksonville Jaguars, but in the way that they do it, you look at the schedule moving forward. Okay, so next weekend, you've got the Tennessee Titans, and that's going to be a tough one because the Titans' recipe for success is really similar to what the Browns do week in and week out. So you've got the Titans next weekend, which is going to be tough. You're on the road in Nashville for that one at Nissan Stadium. Then you've got the rematch against the Baltimore Ravens. You got the New York Giants, who now lead the NFC East after their win today. You've got the New York Jets, which it should be a very winnable game in Week 16. And Week 17, you host the Pittsburgh Steelers. But on the back half of this schedule, Steven, you've got the stiffer competition that you've got to face. And the Browns need to win one of these games, whether it's next week against Tennessee or one of these other matchups where they're actually considered an underdog. It's nice to get a win over a team that you're supposed to today, but the way that you do, I would have liked to see the Browns put the Jaguars away, and they did not do that this afternoon. They did not do that. They played down to their competition.
Yeah, and there's definitely, like you noted, plenty of reasons for that with the absences of Ward, Garrett, Harrison going out. But I also agree where, they're all out, but this is still a bad Jaguars team. Mike Glennon is not the answer in Jacksonville. So, and a lot of it comes down to, players just being wide open or running backs. Why is Jacksonville's rushing attack going for well over 100 yards against the Browns? Because even with Garrett out, we still have Adrian Claiborne, Olivier Vernon, Sheldon Richardson all up front. So it's not like with Garrett out that the whole defense is just lost. And Ward being out shouldn't affect, it's going to affect the passing game, but it shouldn't affect the running game as much. So yeah, looking ahead the next week, if Ward is out, the focus is still going to be on not letting Derrick Henry get 300 yards or something crazy. Like he went off today against Indianapolis. So I do agree with that where it's, did you play down to the competition, or is that really where the true skill set is with the absences? And it's a huge concern if you can barely beat a 1-win Jacksonville team, then have to, meet up against real competition. And, we looked at the loss to the Raiders and said, well, that's a good Raiders team. Raiders today got smoked by the Falcons. So that was a 16-6 loss in the swirling winds, but still. So maybe they're not as good as we think they are. And then you barely beat the Jags. And now next week, no one really knows what the Browns are capable of because against real competition this year, they got killed by the Steelers and Ravens. So, and the Raiders, but they're not, I'd say, a tier below. So there's just so much uncertainty. I couldn't even offer a prediction or anything for next week.
Right? It's going to be a great measuring stick game for the Browns. I would imagine that the Titans, if I had to set a line, I would guess probably the Titans maybe by 3, just considering they're at home. Titans are going to win today if they haven't already against the Colts. And Derrick Henry went off in this one. I know he had 3 touchdowns in the first half. I was keeping one eye on that game while I was watching the Browns Jags this afternoon. But if you don't stop Derrick Henry, okay, and you do stop, you put 8 guys in the box to try to slow down the Titans running game, which was their recipe a season ago to the AFC Championship game, where they eventually fell to the Super Bowl winning Kansas City Chiefs. Okay, on the outside, the Titans have both A.J. Brown and Corey Davis. So you hope that you can get Myles Garrett back. You hope you can get guys healthy in your secondary, whether that's a Denzel Ward. You hope Ronnie Harrison can come back. Maybe Greedy Williams, who we haven't seen on the field, might return from an injury. You hope you can get some of your key defensive players back, because you're going to need all the help you can get, because what the Titans do offensively is really similar to what the Browns do offensively, in terms of we're going to hand the ball to our stud running back. We're going to maul you from a line of scrimmage standpoint, and we're going to control the clock, keep our offense on the field, our defense off of it. And that's how we're going to win the game. And it's not going to be pretty, but it's going to be effective, especially this late in the season.
And it's going to be, me looking forward to, it's, playing 2 similar styles of football. The big question next week is going to be if Baker can just complete the simple plays. And, if you want to get into a rushing battle with Derrick Henry and the Titans, you have to do what they do well too, where Ryan Tannehill is making the easy plays. And he's not going to miss these short 5-yard throws, and those are going to make the difference. So they're playing that similar style, but there is a very good possibility that they can do what the Titans could do to the Browns, what they did to the Colts today, where you can't stop Derrick Henry, and then your offensive plan changes. Or maybe there's a few missed passes. A missed touchdown like that one to Higgins today is not acceptable against real competition. So, like you said, it's going to be a good measuring stick. And, the defense is going to have to step up in a huge way. So, and maybe actually force a turnover, which today you were kind of looking for that all game. And there's no big play like we saw last week.
A couple of other notes from today's game. Today marks the first time since 1988 that the Browns have won 3 consecutive games, twice in a season. So nice to see that. The Browns also eliminate the Jaguars from playoff contention today. The Jaguars now losers of 10 consecutive games and are now considered the second favorite team behind the New York Jets to get the number 1 overall pick in the 2021 draft in the Tank for Trevor Lawrence sweepstakes. So look, I respect Gardner Minshew's mustache, and I know he did not play today. He's not healthy, and I understand that the Jaguars have plenty of injuries on both sides of the ball, but this was not a game that they should have even been in this one. And I really think that the Browns are fortunate to get a road win today, just considering how everything went in today's game. And again, if they would have come out on the wrong end, Steven, I would have been really hot, and I think it would have been the Browns' worst loss had they failed to achieve victory in this one, just because, we see earlier in the year the blowout to the Steelers and the Ravens, and especially early on was kind of expected because this Browns team is still on the up and up. But if they would have lost to a team where you're heavily favored over, these are the teams you have to beat if you want to ensure that you're going to be in the playoffs. And at the very least, the Browns could say that they did that, and they were victorious this game. And really, I think it comes back to that crazy decision for the Jaguars to go for 2 in the second quarter of the game. And really, that was a key difference in this one.
And when you brought up, I think is kind of a good example of why the Browns are a different team under Kevin Stefanski. Because in the past, they were easily the most fragile team of all time. They would be, cruising along, say they entered to today like 7-3. And then in the past, if they would have lost a game like the one today, then you look ahead and go, well, there's no way they're going to beat the Titans. There's no way they're going to beat the Ravens. And then you start looking, are we going to win again at all? But today, Doug Marrone makes the confusing decision to go for 2 early, puts his team at a disadvantage, takes a point off the board. They have a missed field goal. All these points left on the board by the Jaguars loom large. So in the past, you would assume the Browns would have lost this game. I mean, think of the 3rd and 12, a conversion to ice the game. There's no way they're getting that, in years past. And they were going for it. And I said, man, if they lose by 1 point to the Jaguars, this is going to be an absolute disaster. But they didn't. They get the conversion. So it's you're just going off 20 years of the same thing, and then it's different this year. So it's still taking some getting used to. But I mean, we have players like Nick Chubb to get those conversions. So totally different than what we're used to, and it's good because I'm sure I wasn't the only one saying, oh no, they're going to lose once they got that holding call that took away a conversion to make it 3rd and 12 in the first place with about 2 minutes left.
On that Nick Chubb screen pass to seal the game for the Browns, if you didn't see the block that I believe it was Joel Bitonio threw, go back and check out the replay on that one because he absolutely mauled a Jaguars defender. But it's nice to be on the other side of this, to where you go from the laughing stock of the league to where it's your head coach in Freddie Kitchens, or, okay, run down the list of coaches that the Browns have had through the years with Hugh Jackson, what have you. It's nice to be on the other side of that now versus being the laughing stock and being the comedy of the league. And the Browns able to get it done and now improved to 8-3. They get a shout out from LeBron on Twitter after the game, says 8-3, keep going, #Browns. He also said, yes, sir, juice, and tagged wide receiver Jarvis Landry, who again had more than 100 yards receiving today and had his first receiving touchdown on the season. So I would like to see him continue that production moving forward for the Browns. Steven, before signing off here, final thoughts from this afternoon's 27-25 victory over the Jaguars.
Yeah, and also quickly, one point I wanted to bring up, you were talking about older coaches, not older, but past coaches for the Browns. During the broadcast, I believe Adam Archuleta brought up, he goes, Nick Chubb's been busting off huge runs for 3 years, and the problem was in his rookie season, Hugh Jackson made Carlos Hyde the starter, and Chubb would come in and get 100 yards on 3 carries, exaggerating, but it seemed like on certain occasions it was like that. And you look now and it's just, who's the best player? Okay, they're going to play. Like it's Harrison Bryant gets a drop. Okay, well, target Hooper, get Njoku back out there. So it's not this weird stubbornness where you almost, Browns coaches in the past, it almost seemed like they would do things to lose on purpose and then blame the front office or the players. Now there's actual consistency. Kevin Stefanski, made a kind of confusing decision, to use a challenge today, but he never let his team collapse in these wild circumstances that COVID has provided. Everyone's in masks on the sidelines. You can't meet during the week. That's much different than everyone's used to. And he held his team together. And I think that's my biggest final thought, is that we're looking at a coach who is at least going to be here for his contract, which is huge for the Browns.
I'll piggyback off that as we wrap up here and say, when we critique Kevin Stefanski's decision-making today, Steven, we're really nitpicking. It's okay, if the Browns do convert on that one, they probably put the game away with, 4:30, 5:30 left on that failed 3rd and inches conversion, on the run by, or the the flat pass to Kareem Hunt, and then the failed conversion on the 4th and inches. So I understand the decision-making to try to put it away there, because if you do convert, at the very least, you're chewing off another 2 minutes on the clock, and Jacksonville is really limited in how much time they'll have left, at the very least, if you convert there. And so when you question those decisions, they are questionable, but again, we're nitpicking, and you can at least understand the logic. And even the decision to challenge the Harrison Bryant touchdown. Okay, you regroup, you get a timeout. I believe the Browns went and even scored on that same drive. It just cost them a timeout, in the sense that, okay, it probably isn't a touchdown, but maybe it is worth finding out, because if it is overturned, great, you've got 6 there. And so it's just nice in the sense that you can't question the decisions today. It was really the first time since week 1, but we're kind of nitpicking with those decisions. And we haven't seen that in the past with Browns head coaches. And you do see that this year with first-year head coach Kevin Stefanski. I'll go ahead and sign off here. Steven, we will be back next weekend for Browns-Titans. I cannot wait to watch this one in Week 13 again. Browns travel to Nissan Stadium in Nashville for that one, and a matchup between Nick Chubb and Derrick Henry, a guy who stole the rushing title in Week 17 of the 2019 season. So I can't wait to see these two top NFL running backs go head-to-head. But, Steven, appreciate you. This is always so much fun. And I'll go ahead and sign off for the both of us here. For Steven Kubitza, I'm Mark Bergin. Thank you for listening to the Browns Nation Station. Please go leave us a 5-star review. I would love to read some of those here on the show too. So go do that on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to the show, whether it's YouTube, Stitcher, Spotify, what have you. Please rate, review, and subscribe. We will see you next week. Take care, and so long, everyone.